Hey there, my name is Matthew Peterson. I'm a trainer at Pragmatic Works located in Northeast Florida. And for today's video, what I want to talk about is the if function. The if function is a very common DAX expression used just about in almost all Power BI reports that I see. However, if you're new to Power BI, you might not have been exposed to it, so I want to give you a quick rundown of how it works. Now, the way that we're going to do this today is we're going to be looking at some play data that I have. It's not too businessy, it's more fun data. But what we're going to do is we're going to put a test in. That's what the if statement does. You put in a test, and it's going to check to see if it's true or if it's false. And then based on that, we will have an outcome. Now, our outcomes today is we're going to try to add in new columns of data. These columns didn't exist in the original data source, but it's something that we want in order to make some kind of visual or some kind of determination about what the data is speaking to us. So let's head over and take a look at what the data is for today, and then we'll see how this if statement actually works. So as you take a look here, I've got my first one is just student data based on, as an educator, that's what I used to do. And I have some student names. I have how many late homeworks they have, as well as what their current test average is. So just 3 columns. And I want to put in a brand new column in just a second. But just to show you what the other data is going to look like, I have some children names, how many missed chores they have, and what their currently weekly screen time allotment is. Now, where you write DAX is actually done in the desktop outside of the Power Query Editor. So we're going to get rid of the Power Query Editor at this point, and we're going to come over into the desktop, and I like to write all of my DAX statements when I'm adding columns in the data view, because that way I get to see the results immediately to make sure everything worked right. So let's do the first one. Let's talk about students and their late homework. So let's say that there is a reward of based on how many late homeworks they have. They either get a pizza party or they don't get a pizza party. So 2 different scenarios, and we want to put down for each row whether or not that student got a pizza party or not. So in order to add a new column here, I'm just going to right click on student data, come over and hit on new column. This pulls up my formula bar. Now, if you're new to DAX, just a quick trick here. If you hold down your control key and scroll up or down on your mouse, it makes your text bigger. Also, anytime you want to move to a new line of code, if you hit Shift Enter, and you can have as many white spaces as you want in your DAX formula in terms of lines here. So that's just a way to kind of start making things look a little bit easier. And I'll be doing that throughout this demonstration. So let's make a column name. Let's call this our reward. So we always have to have a name for our formula. So we're going to say the reward is equal to. Now let's put in our if statement. So we're going to say if. And notice what it's telling you. In Power BI, every DAX formula tells you what the function does, and then it gives you the roadmap of what you need in order to make it work. So we're going to say if. Well, we want to check. What is it that we're trying to check? I want to check their late homeworks column. So I'm just going to start typing in late homeworks. There it is. I'll tab that to make it go up to the formula bar very quickly. And I'm going to say if their late homeworks are less than 3. So meaning they either had 2, 1, or none. Less than 3. So that's the test I want it to do, comma. Now it says, well, what do you want the result to be if it's a true thing? I'm just going to put a text string in here. I'm going to say pizza party. And then we'll put that around double quotes because that's a text string. Then we don't have to put a result if it's false. So let's see what happens if we don't put anything there. In DAX, anytime you see anything with brackets around it in the roadmap, so to speak, that means it's optional. So let's see what happens if we don't put anything there. So we'll hit enter. And what happens is for all of the false statements where they were 3 or above, we produce blank values because we didn't give it anything to actually put in. So it just said, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to leave it blank. But I don't want it to leave it blank. Let's put down what actually happens. So I'm going to go comma and says, okay, well, what do you want it to be if it is false? I'm going to do shift enter here so we can see it a little bit easier. I'm going to say no party. And we'll put a sad face there. And we'll close that out. And notice now we see that those blanks have been filled in with no party. All right, easy peasy, right? Well, something else you can do with DAX, it doesn't have to just be hard-coded values. You can actually put in mathematical formulas if you want to. So let's say I want to base it off their late homework, something happening to their test average. So let's add another if just to get a feel for it here. So I'm going to say the test reward is equal to, we're going to start off with an if. I want to check their late homework scores. So we're going to go check their late homework. I'm going to tab that over. And I'm going to say if it is less than 2, so that means either 1 or none, then I want to go to the true statement. What do I want to happen? I want you to take their test column. So we're going to go test student data table. That's what this means down here. Is whenever you have your, come on over. Whenever you see the parentheses, sorry, not the parentheses, the single quotes around the words, that means that's the table. And whenever you see brackets, that's referencing a column within that table. So the student data table, which is what we're on, and the test column. And I want you to take that, and I want you to add, let's say, 5 points to the score. And then we'll go comma. Well, what do we want to happen if not? Well, no penalization, but we'd want the test scores to stay the exact same. So I'm just going to say return the student data test column. And then we will hit enter. And notice what we see. We now see that if it was 1 or none, which we have here, 1, it took the 85 and added 5 to it. We have down here, Prithi hit 77 went to 82. But everything in the middle here, none of them actually changed because they were either 2 or greater, so it just reproduced the exact test column. So that is the basics of if right there. However, we can make them a little bit more advanced because sometimes you have more than 2 outcomes based on a condition. You might have 3 or 4. So how can you do that? Well, one way some of you might know is called the switch function, which I'll talk about in another video. However, today what I want to talk about, because we're doing if, is we're going to go with nested ifs. And what a nested if does is it does the first check. You put down what you want to happen if it's true. But then if it's false, you want to do another check on top of that because you have more than just 2 outcomes. So let's see how we can do that. And I'm going to do it in the on my children's screen time here. So let's say I want their screen time to go down based on the chores that they have missed throughout the week. So let's add in a new column. And I'm going to say actual screen time is equal to, and it's all based off of how many chores they missed. So that's the first thing we need to check. Let's go check the score. So we're going to say if, go look at those missed chores. And we're going to say if the missed chores are equal to 0, meaning they didn't miss anything. Actually, no, we can go less than 1. If they're less than 1, which means they didn't miss anything, what happens? Well, they should get all of their screen time. So let's bring back the entire weekly screen time allotment. So I'm going to pull in the screen time minutes allotment. And so that's what I want to happen if it's true. Well, what do I want to happen if it is false? Well, there's a few things that could happen. We get maybe rid of some of them, a little bit more of them, a lot of them. So instead of just 1 or 2 things, I have 3 or 4 different options that can happen. So now I need to say, okay, I want you to check it again. So if it's not less than 1, I need you to do another check for me. So I'm going to go down and hit Shift Enter so we can start seeing it. So this is what's going to happen if we get a false for the very first check. If it's false, I want you to do another check of this. Go back and check their missed chores again. And now I want you to check to see if it's less than 2. Because they weren't less than 1. Sorry, it wasn't less than 1. So now all the results that you still have left over, now see if any of them are less than 2. And if they're less than 2, then what I want you to do is I want you to take the screen time allotment. So we're going to go with our screen time allotments. And I want you to multiply it by, let's say they get 90% of their screen time allotments. Perfect. So now they found it. But well, what if I want to do another check again? Well, I'm going to put in a comma for what happens if it's false. Well, now I want to check to see if it's less than maybe 3. So I'm going to hit Shift Enter. I'm going to do another if check. I'm going to say, hey, go take a look at those missed chores. See if they are less than 3. And if they're less than 3, then I want you to take their screen time allotment and let's give them 80%. All right. And then it says false. Well, now if I'm done checking, maybe if there's only one last thing that there could be, like they get 50% of their weekly screen time allotment, this is where I would now say, okay, you don't need to do any more checks. Whoever is left, whatever is left, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take that weekly screen time allotment and we're going to multiply it by 0.5. And then parentheses. So that closes off this one. This is what I love. They always highlight your parentheses in DAX to let you know the opening and the closing. Close that one off, Close this one off, so we should be good now. I've got the one at the top, one at the bottom. Let's hit enter, and let's see what happens. So far, so when we went to Sloan here, it checked, is it less than 1? Yeah, Sloan was less than 1, so she got her full allotment of 350. Let's go to Caleb, who had 5. So it starts off, is Caleb less than 1? No, it's not. So then it goes to the next check. Is it less than 2? No, it's not. So it then has to go to the false again. So it checks again, less than 3? No, it's not. So finally it says, well, you're the last one, you're the leftover, so we're going to multiply you by 0.5. If we take a look at Brooklyn here, on Brooklyn, she is at 2. So when it checks for less than 1, doesn't cut it. So then it goes to the false condition. It says, hey, if, all right, is she less than 2? Nope, because she is 2. Didn't cut it, so it didn't multiply by 0.9, so it went to the false statement, which was another if check. Less than 3, yes, less than 3. Finally, she falls into something, and we multiply it by 0.8. So that is a nested if. Sometimes they can get a little bit gnarly to look at when you start having a whole bunch of them together, and that's where you might want to go over to the switch function. And again, I hope to cover the switch function in a future video. Hopefully this helped you out if you are new to the if statement. Please like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know what you enjoyed about it, any future videos that you would like for me to discuss or cover. And I hope this was helpful.